Hello, Virtual Winter Institute. It's great to have this opportunity to speak to you. I am Jane Kelly, the Director of Sales and Marketing from the University of Toronto Press, the other UT Press. And today I will share some of our biggest titles that have just released and are expected in 2021. Last year in Baltimore, the University of Toronto Press attended our first ever Winter Institute. And I spoke to you about some of the new business titles that would be launching from Rotman UTP Publishing. And I also announced that we would launch two new trade imprints in 2020, AVO UTP and New Jewish Press. I don't recommend launching two new trade imprints during a pandemic. However, we decided not to delay our launch and forge ahead with our original plan. And despite international travel bans, social distancing rules, and regional lockdowns, our inaugural list from our two new trade imprints did quite well. This list included 3 important books from AVO UTP, all on climate change. Each approached the topic from 3 different angles. The first is Solved by David Miller. Last year, David Miller, our author, was at the Winter Institute. He attended the author lunchtime reception and signed samples of his book and talked to many of you about your own concerns about climate change in your community. In Solved, David Miller, who is the former mayor of Toronto, argues that cities are taking action on climate change because they can and because they must. Miller makes a clear-eyed and compelling case that if replicated at pace and scale, the actions of leading global cities point the way to creating a more sustainable planet. Solved demonstrates that the initiatives that cities have taken to control the climate crisis can make a real difference in reducing global emissions if implemented worldwide. By chronicling the stories of how cities have taken action to meet and exceed emissions targets laid out in the Paris Agreement, Miller empowers readers to fix the climate crisis. Our next release on climate change was Lead for the Planet by Ray Andre. Lead for the Planet shifts the focus to how we humans are going to organize to solve the twin issues of climate change and energy evolution. The book channels a broad range of social science perspectives from anthropology to psychology to economics, to help decision makers explore how Team Humanity can help solve climate change. Lead for the Planet outlines 5 practices that successful climate leaders will need to adopt, from getting the truth about the state of the planet, to assessing the risks and identifying the interests of stakeholders, to implementing change within and between organizations on a global scale. Building on her experience as an organizational psychologist, Ray Andre shows how these practices comprise an effective model for climate leadership. And finally, climate change from a chemist's point of view. The Story of CO2 explores all aspects of carbon dioxide, from the atomic to the universal perspective, and takes the reader on an epic journey into our physical world, starting from the moment of the Big Bang, all the way to the present world in which atmospheric CO2 concentrations continue to grow. This story seeks to inspire readers with the latest carbon utilization technologies and explain how they fit within the broader context of carbon mitigation strategies in the shift towards a sustainable energy economy. Now, coming this spring from AVO UTP is a wonderful story about Indigenous peoples and settlers coming together over 30 years to heal in talking circles. The Gatherings is by Shirley N. Hager and Mawopiyane. Mawopiyane is the collective name given to the 12 co-authors, and it means let us sit together in Passamaquoddy. 30 years ago in Wabanaki Territory, a region encompassing the state of Maine and the Canadian Maritime Provinces. A group of settlers and Indigenous peoples started to meet on a regular basis and discuss cultural differences, their pasts, and to find a way to coexist together. The Gatherings is a story of how these conversations fostered a mutually supportive relationship between two distinct communities, told by the people who were actually in the room. There are 12 stories in the book. Some are written by settlers, some are written by Indigenous peoples, but each writer recounts their experience in these gatherings. They open up about their shame, their anger, and their worry, and about the strong relationships and friendships that developed over these 30 years. The Gatherings is what reconciliation looks like every day and provides a blueprint for other communities to come together. The Gatherings will publish from AVO UTP and will be available in April 2021. Color Matters by Carl E. James has been written over the period of more than 2 decades. Color Matters is a collection of essays that shows how race informs the aspirational pursuits of Black youth. Based on research conducted throughout Black communities, along with 30 years of Carl James's teaching experience, Color Matters is a collection of essays that engages educators, youth workers, and policymakers to think about the ways in which race functions to shape the education and community of African Canadians. Informed by the current socio-political Canadian landscape, Color Matters covers topics relating to the lives of Black youth. The essays reflect the issues and concerns of the past 30 years and questions what has changed and what has remained the same in the lives of Black youth. Each essay is accompanied by an insightful response from a scholar engaging with these topics ranging from immigration, schooling, to athletics, mentorship, and police surveillance. Color Matters will publish from the University of Toronto Press and will be available in March 2021. Next is Connected Capitalism by David Weitzner. A professor of management and a former rock and roll executive who advocates for co-creation over management, David Weitzner envisions a workplace based on the Jewish practices of mitzvah and harufza. Connected Capitalism is based on recent interviews with leading voices in the arts like Rita Ronaldo from Sonic Youth, from politics, and from business, intermingled with the teachings of ancient rabbis. Together, they support Weitzner's call for a more spiritual approach to work and a more inclusive type of capitalism. Connected Capitalism will publish from New Jewish Press and will be available in April 2021. Next is a preview of one of our most highly anticipated fall titles from AVO UTP, A Runner's Journey by Bruce Kidd. Bruce Kidd is a Canadian sports legend and a longtime professor at the University of Toronto. In his 50-year career at the University of Toronto, Bruce has somehow found the time to write and edit 12 books, 2 children's books, several government reports, countless articles, radio scripts, and book reviews. His book, The Struggle for Canadian Sport, won the book prize of the North American Society for Sport History. As a teenager in the 1960s, Bruce Kidd won running races all over the world, often against much older runners. He started a revolution in youthful distance running and a revival in Canadian track and field. The Canadian press twice elected him as Canada's Male Athlete of the Year. He quickly became a symbol of Canadian youth, the subject of endless media coverage, including NFB and CBC films, and favorable political commentary. Lorne Michaels, the producer of Saturday Night Live, once said with a groan that every parent wanted their kid to grow up to be Bruce Kidd. As a former athlete and sports leader, he has been honored by 5 Canadian Halls of Fame, the Commonwealth Sports Awards, the International Olympic Committee, and the United Nations. This new book, A Runner's Journey, is his memoir and personal story of his life filled with activism, scholarship, and leadership. A Runner's Journey will publish from the AVO UTP imprint and will be available in September 2021. There are many other titles coming out this spring from Rotman UTP Publishing and University of Toronto Press. Our Spring-Summer 2021 catalog is available on Edelweiss and Catalyst. For questions about distribution, events, and digital merchandising, please call or email me. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you all next year. Thank you.